hangouts. We're going to be doing several of these over the next week and a half to 2 weeks throughout the Champions Trophy. My name is Kartik. I know last time we were here for the Border Gavaskar Trophy, so this time we're moving on with the Champions Trophy, and this time our usual suspects, Angadh Oberoi has joined us today. Angadh, welcome to you.
Right.
Good to see you, and two special guests today. You may have noticed last time watching us, we had a former ABC broadcaster, Glenn Mitchell, and he's nice enough to join us again. Welcome, Glenn.
Nice to be with you, Kartik. Hopefully it's going to be a bit brighter than when I spoke to you in the Border Gavaskar Trophy from an Australian perspective.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Hopefully, for your sake, they do a lot better. And another special guest we have today is from Cricinfo himself, Jarrod Kimber. Jarrod, welcome to you.
Cheers.
Fantastic, guys. Great to have you all on board. Of course, Jarrod is also one half of the two Chucks. For those of you who follow Cricinfo, those are the two guys, Sam and Jarrod, on there. So yeah, well, anyway, we'll get it started, guys. I guess for us as the Swami Army, we like to focus on the Indian cricket team as a whole. But before we get into that, just your thoughts on the Champions Trophy, Jarrod. I know there's you've got certain views, and just a bit of a heads up of basically what it's about, and whether you think it's still relevant or not.
I mean, I don't think anyone thinks it's still relevant. I'm not sure it was ever relevant. It's probably the only tournament in the world that started unrelevant and has gone down from there. I mean, you've got a tournament that started off essentially to try and boost cricket in Bangladesh and in Kenya. Those two countries are now no longer allowed to play in this tournament. The tournament's name has changed in that time as well. They've tried to kill it 3 or 4 times. It was being played every 2 years. Then there was a 3-year gap. Now there's been a 4-year gap. It's just a horrible, disgusting little tournament that no one in cricket can kill. And obviously the World Test Championship was supposed to be played, which is, a lot of people don't like that either. But I think we can say that at least that was a step in the right direction, whereas this is just another money-grubbing thing from the 8 major members who are basically filling their pockets again.
Absolutely, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. So I guess we're all kind of glad that it is moving on, and we're going to be hopefully focusing more on Test cricket, which is obviously the prime version of the game. But nevertheless, given that the Champions Trophy is on right now and it's about to start as of tomorrow, the first game of the series being India and South Africa. Now we've seen both teams have had indifferent preparation coming up, leading up towards the tournament. Obviously, India has been all over the place with the IPL and the corruption and the BCCI, and I mean it just seems like it's another day in the life of the BCCI and the Indian cricket team. But it just seems to be going, jumping leaps and bounds. But I guess, Angadh, from your perspective, from a fan's perspective, I think it's we're very much looking forward to just getting down to the cricket again.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of sick of hearing about what Srinivasan's doing, what any of the top officials of the BCCI are doing. Just getting excited to see, some cricket again, the boys back on the path. I mean, that's what we're about as a fan group, going to support whatever 11 guys are selected to represent the team. So yeah, it is good to see that the focus is back on the cricket, and yeah, for once, India was going into the tournament with no expectations beyond the teams, selecting a relatively inexperienced team. But now with everything that's gone on in the background, I guess it might end up being a big tournament for them, just to put the focus back on cricket rather than whatever's going on behind the scenes.
In terms of the actual, I guess, South African perspective, when we've seen the likes of Graham Smith not being there with injury, Jacques Kallis also injured, and now Dale Steyn, who's just pulled up with a bit of an injury the last couple of days. Do you think that maybe this is probably a blessing in disguise for India, when otherwise they probably wouldn't have a chance against the might of the South African team. You think, given that they've got a young team in and they're struggling with injuries as well, this will probably help India's cause.
Yeah, it will, but at the same time, South Africa, you can't discount South Africa. They're a great squad. I think missing 1 or 2 or 3 guys won't, make them a minnow or anything. They're still going to come at India really hard. I think the game against Pakistan, the warm-up, they didn't really treat it with that much respect. So, expect them to come out really strong against India tomorrow.
Most definitely. Now, Glenn, do you think that the toss in England is a crucial thing? Do you think that's something that'll determine the result of the game, much like the subcontinent?
I think the pitches will have a lot to do with it over there. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see much spin. We certainly saw spin-friendly pitches in England for recent Test matches, but I don't think in the one-day series it will be like that. And I think the teams that have got the best pace bowling barrage are the ones that are going to win perhaps the series. And I lean to say a Pakistan. Sri Lanka, I think, have got a very good team when it comes to conditions that are favourable to swing. We saw them actually decimate Australia up in Brisbane last summer when the ball was moving around. Australia got all out for 50-odd. So I think Pakistan's got a good bowling lineup. South Africa, if Steyn is fit, obviously that's a big plus for them. And for India, I think one of the key things is whether someone like Yadav or Sharma can replicate what they did just overnight against Australia. Yadav can be a very dangerous bowler if he gets the right conditions. But I think we're going to find over in England that the pitches probably are going to be favourable more to the pace bowlers than the spinners. And I don't know whether that takes some of the subcontinental teams perhaps out of the frame a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know normally, we should probably, warm-ups are generally used to test the players, test the bench out and the extended squad. But, I mean, from India's perspective last night, Jarrod, you would have noticed that, there was at one stage 50.5 and then, rallied to make 300 and then bowled straight after 55. Do we read much into that? I mean, as Glenn mentioned, Yadav had a great game and Ishan Sharma got him amongst the wickets as well. But is that something that maybe as Indian fans we shouldn't jump to conclusions or jump the gun a little bit, or should we just? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it seemed like Australia were taking the game fairly seriously. I mean, they picked 11 players, whereas India were picking from all 15. They started pretty well, like you said. They had them 5 down after not too long, and it seemed like Australia were the ones taking it seriously, and maybe India were mucking around for a while there. And then I don't know whether it had something to do with Clark's injury, and they were worried about him not playing in the series or something, and then Australia lost the plot. Dinesh Kartik is a hell of a batsman. How he only averages 27 in one-day cricket, I don't know. But we saw in the IPL how good he could be against proper attacks even at times. So. He gave this, this platform, and that's twice now India have scored over 300. Once with, just through classy batting, and the other time through, collapse and then making 300. I think that's pretty good signs for India. There's a lot of other nonsense obviously going around at the moment. That might, it's a short tournament, so maybe that won't even affect them. But I think they look okay. I mean, South Africa looked uninterested the other day. Now, it might have been because it was a practice game, but, Rory Kleinveld, I'm pretty sure there was one delivery I was watching where he wasn't even watching as the bowler came into bowl. Now, maybe that's just because it was a practice game. Maybe it's because, Smith is injured. Callis doesn't want to play in this tournament for personal reasons. Steyn might not be playing. They might not see it as this serious. I mean, we think of the Champions Trophy as this major tournament, but some of the players don't think of it that way. And I know there was a great story recently where an English journalist said to an English player, the Champions Trophy, it's an ICC event. It's more important than the Ashes. And then there was a bunch of swear words that came back at him, and not so much.
Yeah, look, I think if anybody has any doubt about the relevance of the Champions Trophy, I think we'll just get him to have a chat to you, and that's great. But you did mention that Dinesh Kartik had a really good game, and you questioned how he's not in the side, or how he's only averaging 27 odd in one-day cricket. I'll throw it over to Angad. What do you think would be just I guess would you reckon Dinesh has a chance of starting 11? I mean, obviously, you would say after the last two innings, given he's made 100 in each innings, he'd be a straight-in shoe-in choice ahead of the likes of maybe Rohit Sharma. But what are the chances of him actually, getting in the side? I know he doesn't play for Chennai Super Kings, so that doesn't obviously help him over there.
Look, I don't think there's any question about him being in the first 11. He had a great domestic tournament. He had great IPL. He's backed it up with a couple of tons in the practice game. So how can you ignore a guy like that from the 11, especially when guys like Rohit Sharma, Suresh Raina have always struggled in English conditions and and they haven't really done much in the practice game. So I don't think there's any question about Dinesh Karthik's place in the side. And who knows, he might even take over with the gloves if Dhoni's feeling lazy on again.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have seen that MS has sometimes, even during the game itself, decided to just take the pads and gloves off and have a
bowl. Last Champions Trophy, took a wicket, and
he's been bowling in the nets a lot too, MS Dhoni, and he also said that Dinesh Karthik will play. So whether that will come ahead or not, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see him bowl. He's probably second or third quickest Indian bowler out there. So there's a big chance, big chance at one stage or another he can bowl a few overs.
Well, that's certainly an option with MS Dhoni. Anything is possible, I guess. In terms of the bowling side of things, I know India's Achilles heel for the last so however many years in bowling. And obviously we've got a young team in now with the likes of Yadav and Ishant Sharma. What's your thoughts on the pace attack for India, Glenn? Do these guys stand a chance at all to even take? Obviously, we've seen them against Australia. They've taken 11 wickets, 10 wickets, but do they stand a chance in the real tournament at all against the more pacey lineups like your South Africas and England's and Australia's?
Well, traditionally, I mean, pace isn't always the way to win one-day matches. I mean, sometimes it is players that perhaps aren't as quick, aren't going full board, that can actually be the most successful. Sharma's going to be the interesting one, I think. Ishant Sharma is a little bit like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get when you open the lid. And if he bowls well, and if he's on song, supporting the likes of Yadav, I think it'll be very, very important. Will India go for an all-rounder? If they do, will it be Irfan Pathan that comes in? Now, he can be a very steady bowler. He's certainly not express. But I think, given the pitches over there, I actually personally think that India doesn't have a bad bowling lineup. But so much, I reckon, is going to hinge on what Ishant Sharma can produce. He was good overnight, 3 for 11 against Australia. I still think Australia was actually taking that match relatively seriously last night. Don't be fooled. Australia and England are talking about they're looking forward to the Ashes. For Australia, every match that their batsmen get in England conditions is going to be important to them. And they would have been trying like mad last night to stay in and score runs. They're all out to 65. So I think India has the right bowling attack, but I just wonder whether Ishant could be the man that might go for 65 or 70 in his 10 overs, and that could actually prove the difference between India and the 3 opponents are going to go through in the qualifying rounds.
Yeah, look, I certainly agree with you there. Now, just with the new rules that have come into play, with the only 4 men outside of the circle after in the second power play, how does that affect the team's strategy these days? I mean, is that going to be? We've seen in the recent one days that MS Dhoni's actually mentioned that's sort of changed the game a little bit, and it's made it a bit more of a batsman's game. I think it's slowly starting to become more of a batsman's game. I mean, eventually we'll probably have to start using bowling machines, if you like. I'm not sure much will help with the bowlers, but I mean, Jarrod, how do you think that affects the game and the tactics and the way the guys would go about it, especially the captains?
I think what it does is, it's quite interesting. A lot of people have said it's a batsman's game, but having seen it used at Lords when there was a bit of movement around, it actually helped the bowling team. It meant that there was an extra fielder inside the circle with the extra new ball as well. It was swinging for longer. And what it actually did was it helped the bowling. So I think when the conditions are in favour of bowling, I think the rules will probably favour the bowlers more. when the conditions are in favour of batting, the rules will favour the batsman more. Now, this is probably an accident because I don't think the ICC would have ever thought this through that much. But essentially what I think will happen is you'll end up with massively high scores, like we've already seen, and quite low scores. What I think we might lose is the middle scores. You know, maybe the 250 to 280 type scores that have become quite commonplace. I think you might get scores that are 230 or less, or you might get scores that are 320 and more. And so what Tony's saying is right, but you got to remember he's played on 2 pitches that have been pretty flat, all in all. Whereas it'll be interesting to see what happens if he plays on a raging green top, and you got the extra guy in the ring, and suddenly it becomes hard to get past them. So it's an interesting change. I mean, it's one of these things we talk about the Champions Trophy being a bit ridiculous at times, but one-day cricket, it's like if we don't change a playing condition every week, we feel like we're not trying to improve the game. And whether it's ever been improved by any of the playing conditions that have been brought in is maybe dubious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. But do you think that maybe we'll start to see games that are either completely one-sided when the first teams score 300 plus and bowled them out, as we saw last night, or will it be a lot closer now that these new rules have come in? How do you see it sort of panning out? As you did mention that we're going to be missing out on the middle scores, but will these rules make the games closer at all, or will there just be more one-sided games and the teams blowing them out the water?
Well, I mean, low-scoring games should be, by definition, should be closer, shouldn't they? So you would hope that the low-scoring games would be closer games, but it's hard to have a really close game when a team scores over 300. I mean, even India the other day, I mean, I thought that would be a good game, but when Sri Lanka couldn't get any wickets at all, essentially what you have at the end is, India just cruising to a 360 win. And the other game that I think, what was it? It was New Zealand who scored 360. So New Zealand scored 360, and England don't get anywhere near it. So I think those sorts of things are still going to happen. But hopefully the lower the scores, generally the closer the games are. And once you've got wickets falling, there's always a chance of anything happening. It's these games where it just seems to be that the ball, and we're not sure. I mean, what Glenn was saying before is exactly right. We expect this to be a seam bowling, tournament, because all tournaments in England generally won by the best seam bowling attacks. The practice pitches don't necessarily point towards that right at the moment. So it would be interesting to see how they come out. I just hope that every game isn't 350 score in the first innings, because I don't personally believe those games end up that brilliant.
I think what you're going to find, Kartik, is I agree with Jarrod that there are going to be times in this tournament, I think, where if you get a juiced up wicket and you get the right conditions overhead for swing bowling, and the fact now that they use a new ball at each end, I think that is going to make a very big difference. There are going to be some teams, I think, that will really struggle when the conditions align perfectly for the team that's in the field. And I think just this added advantage of having a new ball at each end, and the fact that most pitches in England, the centre wicket block is not very abrasive. You see teams around the world trying to throw the ball in on the bounce to the keeper to try and soften the ball up and the likes. You can't do that as successfully on England pitches. And I think that the seam bowlers, when the captain has to have that additional man inside the circle, and if you are getting some gloomy English conditions with the low cloud, I think, as Jarrod said, we're likely to see some teams skittle well and truly for under 100 during this tournament.
With the new rules, do you reckon it rules out the position of the spinner in the team? Does it undermine the spinner in the squad? I know it's in England and the conditions aren't too suited to spin bowling, but with the 2 new balls at each end and the fielder inside circle, does it make the spinner redundant?
I think it's going to matter what pitches you're playing on, I would imagine, or which country you're in. If you're playing in the subcontinent, I don't think a new ball at each end is going to make that big a difference. In a country like Australia, in England, South Africa, where you are going to get pitches that have got some life in it, I think it will be tougher for the spinners. And then you've got to actually look also at the quality of pace bowling. If you look at New Zealand, no matter whether they've got 2 balls or they replace them every 6 overs, someone like Daniel Vettori is still going to be a key to their particular bowling attack. But I think from now on, depending on what the conditions are and where a tournament or where a triangular series or even just a head-to-head series is played, I think the pitch conditions will have a very big say from now on, and the atmospheric conditions on just how much we see from spinners in any individual match.
It's also worth saying, though, that, I mean, there's no ball that's ever more than 20 overs old in a T20 game, and yet spinners are as important, if not more important, in T20 than they've ever been. And also, the new fielding restrictions actually can help the spinners. I know there's a feeling that, you know, essentially, oh, an extra man not out on the boundary, the spinner's going to get smashed. But you've got to remember that what happens is now that it's harder to score singles against spinners, which means you get planted on the crease a little bit longer. And then when you play the brass shot, you're likely to miss it, which is different than if you can score a single every ball without worrying, which is more the case from before. And then suddenly, you know, the boundaries become easier to score. So I don't necessarily believe that to be the case. And also, if you've got the new ball actually taking more wickets, which it should do if you've got two new balls, it should take more wickets. That means when the spinner comes on, middle order batsmen are basically facing the spinner straight away with more fielders in the circle. So everyone always says this is the end of spin bowling. Spin bowling will never come back. It's said so often. It just never seems to actually come. I mean, spin bowlers seem to adapt, and I mean, they're the most Darwinian creatures of cricket, realistically. I mean, look at off-spin bowlers. 10 years back, Gideon Haigh was calling off-spin cricket's rubbish skill, and now they've invented all these new deliveries. So it still is cricket's rubbish skill in club cricket, but in international cricket, it's an amazing thing.
Well, it seems like the game's well and truly transforming. But I guess from tomorrow's game's perspective, India playing South Africa in the first game of the tournament, your thoughts on first, I guess, who's going to win? That'll be the main question, I would have thought. Who's going to win and why? We'll start off with Angadh. Obviously, I think we know your answer that you're expecting India to win, but any particular reason why? And who would you like? You would like to win India to win, but what's the reason behind that?
Yeah, look, I would want India to win. I'm not too confident as you might be, but if they bat as well as, let me rephrase that, if everyone in the team bats as well as Kartik has been, and they bowl as well as they did last night, then there's no reason why they can't beat anyone in the world. But it's a matter of if they can pull it off every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a young team, and going in, we wouldn't have expected them to be, perform at all. I guess they really should be going in with a nothing to lose attitude. I guess with the selectors have chosen a young team with one eye on the World Cup. Glenn, your thoughts? South Africa is always a strong team, even without the likes of Graham Smith, Jacques Kallis, and possibly they always somehow find a way to put a strong team in the park. So your tip for tomorrow?
Well, the other thing to keep in mind too, which is quite strange, we haven't really got a definitive answer, but AB de Villiers, they've brought Quinton de Kock into the squad as cover for AB de Villiers. Now, there is something wrong with him. I read actually on Quick Info earlier today that he seemed to say something as he was sitting down to face the media conference. Now, whether he's got something with his lower back, which is not going to help if he's going to be wicket keeping, that could also dilute their strength. If Stone doesn't play, I think it really goes heavily in favour of India. And I think the Indian team will be, there's two reasons. I mean, this is the first real hit out that India has had in a major tournament since they won the World Cup on home soil in 2011. And also, I mean, what's happening at home with the IPL and all these machinations about, the quality of the type of play we're seeing in the IPL and the legitimacy of it. I think India will be one of the teams that will be more galvanised to win this tournament than most, and I think they'll get off to a very good start tomorrow night. I think they'll actually win against South Africa, which will then set them up nicely to get through potentially to the semi-finals.
Absolutely, and I mean we've seen in the past that off-field dramas have sort of galvanised teams like Pakistan, the 2020 World Cup after the bombings after the Sri Lankan series. After that, they all galvanised and really put in a strong performance, and I think they actually won the T20 tournament that year. So, do you think, Jarrod, that as Glenn mentioned, this will certainly help India and bring them together and hopefully do well tomorrow? What are your thoughts? Who do you reckon is going to win tomorrow?
I think there are a lot of Indian players who want to prove that their performances in the IPL are realistic, which, to be fair, some of them probably aren't. realistic. So they do have something to prove. This is a young team as well. I think they're probably less jaded than some of the other Indian teams we've seen of recent times. Some of the other Indian teams we've seen sort of turn up to tournaments and they just don't really look like they want to be there. This is the first one I've seen. I mean, I was worried when I saw them fielding against Sri Lanka. I thought maybe for a little while that it was just another grumpy bunch of millionaires who'd rather be anywhere else. But the way that they played, the way that they batted against Sri Lanka and played against Australia, I was quite impressed by them. It reminds me actually of the 2007 World T20 team. You know, maybe not quite as young and fresh, but that kind of attitude. So I think they could go okay, India. I mean, I worry about their if this becomes a bowling tournament, I just don't think Yadav and Sharma are up to, you know, the quality of some of the other bowling attacks. That said, we're looking at maybe 3 major players being out of South Africa's team. Perhaps for AB de Villiers has a similar back thing to Michael Clarke, and it's not being helped by the fact he's carrying his team and the wicket keeping. And the game is at Cardiff, which if you're a subcontinental team, you want to play as many of these games you can at Cardiff or the Oval. You don't probably want to be at Edgbaston as much. And so they've got every advantage, I think, over South Africa. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure South Africa are taking this tournament as serious as they should be, perhaps because of injury or just perhaps because they don't, you know, see it as a major, you know, I mean, this is they've sort of won, you know, they're the #1 team in the world in Test cricket. That was their major aim. I'm not sure once you get to that whether you look down on the Champions Trophy a little bit, but that could just be me.
Well, I guess it is the #1 Test team versus the #1 ODI team, so it certainly makes for a good battle tomorrow. Before we finish up, guys, a quick tip on the tournament, the whole tournament. Who do you think will take it out? I know, Jarrod, you've mentioned that it seems like South Africans aren't really taking it seriously, but a tip from you for the whole tournament. Do you see?
Well, I suppose it's such an open tournament, and literally any team could win it. I'm not sure how many tournaments that's ever happened before. I mean, but I would say that I think Sri Lanka, I think they can bowl with spin and with swing, and they have Malinga, and I think their batsmen can score over 300, which I think will worry teams like Australia and England and probably even South Africa. So I think that they've got the perfect team to win in all these conditions, but we'll see how they go.
And who do you think will be a dark horse that the least expected that you think will turn some heads and you know, make a few surprises?
Well, I don't think there is. Like I said, all 8 teams can win. So, I mean, if I was picking, I would pick Sri Lanka, and then I think Pakistan are the most likely behind them. They're the 2 teams that played in the World T20 final in England as well. So they're both, you know, in tournaments in the UK in recent times. They've both done well. So, you know, you're just never sure about Pakistan's batting. I mean, let's be honest, they almost lost 2 games in a row to Ireland, who have not been invited to this tournament because they're not one of the major 8, of course. So, I mean, Pakistan I still think are amazing and can do anything on their day. So I think they're always a chance in England.
Fantastic. Glenn, your thoughts, mate? A tip for the whole tour, the trophy, and Smokey.
Pretty much like Jarrod. I mean, I think Sri Lanka are a very strong team. I mean, their batting is so experienced. Someone like Sangakkara, you've got Guy Wardner as well. They've got a well-balanced attack. Whether they'll go in with Mendes and Herith, the 2 spinners, they're vastly different spinners, but whether they'll go in with both in each match. But Kulasekara, when the ball is moving, is a very effective player. We know what Malinga can do, Pereira as well. If I had to pick at this stage, I'd say Sri Lanka to play Pakistan in the final. I mean, Pakistan's got the perfect mix. They've got bowlers that are very adept at bowling towards the death. I think their batting has the ability. And as a Smoky, I reckon you can never really underestimate a team like New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand has a great habit of making semi-finals of 50-over World Cups, and so often they play above themselves. Tim Southee is a very, very good bowler in the closing stages of 50-over internationals and T20s. Someone like Vittori will be hard to get away, and they don't have a bad batting lineup. And one player, I reckon, that people... if he comes off, Luke Ronchi, I mean, I'm from Western Australia, and I have seen Luke Ronchi play some amazing innings in one-day cricket for Western Australia. He might be diminutive in size, but he is one of the cleanest hitters of the cricket ball that I've ever seen. So New Zealand's my Smoky to maybe get through to a semi and cause an upset, but all going according to plan, I reckon Sri Lanka and Pakistan will play off for the final.
Fair enough. I think, yeah, I mean, we've seen Ronchi have a bit of a slow start against England in the ODI series happening right now, but as you said, yeah, he's a very, very good batsman and a very clean hitter of the ball. So as soon as he gets a bit more games under his belt, I'm sure he'll perform well. Angadh, your tip for the tournament, mate, and who do you think will be will surprise?
Well, as much as I'd like India to win it, I reckon out of the three teams that have been mentioned, my feelings on New Zealand. I always think they're favourites going into a tournament just because they always reach a semi, but stumble there. But look, I would like to see New Zealand get to the final against one of Sri Lanka or Pakistan, because it just seems like they're the three teams who actually are set to gain the most from winning the tournament.
Absolutely. I think from my perspective, I'm going to stick with my guns and still back India in the tournament, being the #1 team in the world for the ODIs and the current world champions. It makes a lot of sense. But that's just me. That's pretty much all we have time for, guys. So I think it's India all around the board for tomorrow's game. It's been a pleasure to have you all on. Thank you very much, Glenn and Jarrod, especially for joining us tonight on this hangout. I know we've had you from all parts of the world, but it's been really good having you on, and we really appreciate your time.
It's been great. I just look forward to Jarrod's coverage of the tournament, because I know how passionate he is about it.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to hearing and reading your blogs and columns through cricinfo.com. Throughout the tournament. Thanks very much for everyone online watching. If you have missed it, this will be on YouTube very shortly, and we will be back very soon in the next couple of days for the next game, and hopefully we'll be talking about an Indian victory after tomorrow night. Until next time, it's bye for now.